ago, the Senate voted down the assault weapons ban that I talked about in my last speech. I'm still going to talk about that ban today, however, both because there's a strong possibility that someone could propose it again later, and because many of the arguments I intend to use against it could be used against other forms of gun control as well. Okay, so first I'll have some background. The assault weapons ban, as you may know, was proposed by Senator Dianne Feinstein in response to the Sandy Hook school shootings. And it forbids the sale, transfer, manufacture, etc. of all semi-automatic guns with large capacity magazines and one or more military features. And it also lists 157 specifically named guns to be restricted. Okay? Many people, when presented with a ban like the assault weapons ban, view it with a kind of indifference. Pollsters have seen that Americans tend towards a why not sort of an attitude towards gun bans. But there are three reasons I want to talk about for why the assault weapons ban should not become law. First of all, because it won't actually take all of the assault weapons out of circulation. Under the ban, it grandfathers any assault weapons that are already owned, so those guns will remain in circulation. Not only so, but oftentimes before a ban like this will go through, you'll have people that will buy more than they usually would, so you'll have lots of guns that are grandfathered. They saw this before the passage of the similar 1994 ban, and they're seeing it again with talks of the 2013 version of the ban. Second, the ban, a flaw that will probably permit a lot of continued manufacturing of assault weapons, is the cosmetic focus of the definition of assault weapon. It has to have a military feature, which means it looks a certain way as opposed to having certain functions. So under the 1994 ban, manufacturers continued to make these guns because that ban required two military features. If you take away one, you can keep the same gun. It's a little bit different. The new ban requires only one military feature, but it's reasonable to expect that the same manufacturers who invented an entirely different kind of stock to get around the previous ban are going to find a way to work around the new, tighter, but still cosmetic-focused restrictions. Finally, when considering the effectiveness of this kind of a ban in keeping these guns off the street, we need to recognize that criminals are not going to be hindered by law. By definition, criminals are going to be breaking the law, so while it may make it more difficult for a criminal to get an assault weapon, it won't make it impossible. What it will do is make it harder for law-abiding citizens to get their hands on guns so they can respond when a criminal attacks with one of these weapons. Okay? The second reason is that these guns, that the assault weapons ban will not significantly reduce violent crimes. While proponents of the assault weapons ban like to claim it as a preventative measure against school shootings and like the one that we had in Aurora at the theater, it's important to note that there were 14 mass shootings under the previous ban, including the infamous Columbine High School shooting. Also, assault weapons really aren't used in violent crimes. According to FBI statistics, in 2011, of the 8,583 murders committed with guns in the United States, only 323 were committed with rifles of any kind. And assault weapons, most assault weapons are a subset of those rifles. Also, according to a statistic from Mother Jones, which is a liberal newspaper, there were, between 1982 and 2012, there were 143 different kinds of guns used in mass shootings. Only 20 of those were assault weapons. So even if we could eliminate all of these weapons, they're not being used in violent crimes anyway. Finally, if it really did work, and these guns really were responsible for mass shootings and violent crimes, violent people are still going to find ways to commit violent crimes. They're not going to, just because they can't easily get their hands on an assault weapon doesn't mean that they're not going to take a bomb to the Boston Marathon and try to hurt a whole bunch of people. They don't need guns to do harm. Okay? But demonstrating that the assault weapons ban won't be effective doesn't explain why it shouldn't be passed. Maybe it won't prevent all mass shootings, and maybe there'll still be plenty of assault weapons in circulation, but passing the law can't hurt, can it? Actually, it can. Those who say that the assault weapons ban doesn't do any harm forget that assault weapons have legitimate uses for self-defense. There are plenty of examples of ordinary people who use assault weapons to protect themselves successfully. There's Richard Rhee, who is a Korean grocery store owner in 1982 during the Los Angeles riots, who used assault weapons to defend himself, his employees, and his store against the rioters. Or there's Stephen Baez Jr., who lives in North Augusta, South Carolina, and he woke up one night to find 3 men robbing his gun store, and he used an AR-15 semi-automatic rifle to defend himself successfully. And then there's the 15-year-old boy in Texas who was home alone with his 12-year-old sister, who, when 2 men broke into their house, and he used an assault weapon to scare away the intruders. You don't even actually have to fire an assault weapon for it to be effective against an intruder with big scary guns. So you just have to pull one out a lot of the time, and the intruder will run away. Or, because they're louder than the average handgun, you can shoot it into the air, and the noise will scare away an intruder. If things should come to firing, assault weapons are better for defense against multiple invaders because they're more effective at long range. With police response times to 911 calls growing slower, there really isn't time to call the police and wait for someone to show up and protect you. You need to have a means of defending yourselves. Jason Bourne may have been able to defend himself with a pen, but we would not be so lucky. Americans need effective means to defend themselves, and assault weapons are among the most effective and best means to do so. So what about mass shootings? Proponents of the bill like to say that it's a preventative measure against these kinds of shootings. And isn't it true that if we have the opportunity to protect even one person by eliminating these guns from circulation, that we should do so? Well, yes, but given the fact that these guns will not be eliminated from circulation, and because the assault weapons ban will not actually reduce much crime, and because taking them away can do potential damage, it seems like it would be more effective to encourage Americans, law-abiding citizens, to carry assault weapons and other kinds of guns, so that when someone attacks a theater or a school, there can be an effective and quick response. Why shouldn't we pass the assault weapons ban? Because it's dangerous and ineffective. The real problem here is not guns, it's violent people and people with sin. The assault weapons ban will do more harm than good because it won't take the guns out of circulation, and it will prevent people from defending themselves. So next time the assault weapons ban comes around, if it should do so, we need to put aside our compassion for the victims and our indifference and realize that these assault weapons bans do more harm than they do good.